What do fractional leaders do differently, and why might using a fractional leader be the right choice for your company? Hello and welcome to the Boostara Podcast. I am your host, James. On the Boostara Podcast, we speak to leaders in business and education and uncover the truths and insights from their amazing experiences. At Boostara, we help businesses boost growth, cut costs, and gain better business insights. If you would like to learn more about our services, please type the word growth into the comments below and I will be sure to reach out. Today, it's a first today. I love firsts. So today we're joined by Joe White, Fractional Recruitment Leader, our first fractional leader. Hello and welcome, Joe.
Morning, James. Thank you. You'll run out of first soon.
Oh, no. There'll always be first. I hope. I'll find the firsts. But where are you calling us from today, Joe?
Sunny Guildford in Surrey today.
Amazing. Well, yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, Joe. I mean, we'll get into, fractional. What is a fractional leader? How do they work differently? But could you just run us through a little bit your professional development and how you found yourself to where you are presently?
Yeah, sure. So I got into agency recruitment a long time ago after selling kind of a small business that I set up with a friend at 19. Found myself not knowing kind of what to do next. So then I, as people say, fell into recruitment, which is probably not a fair thing to say. But I started off in agency working for Hayes. And then after a few years of doing that, I actually managed to get probably what was my dream job at that time of my life, in working for a supercar company called McLaren Automotive, and they're not too far from me in Guildford. And I was recruiting for anything that wasn't kind of directly involved in designing or building the car. So all of the operations around that, global sales and marketing, procurement, finance, supplier quality, that type of stuff. Absolutely loved it. Was a brilliant place to be at that time. It was tough though, because we didn't have a lot of startup really. A startup car company, the first thing they're not too worried about is the HR tech stack. So running kind of like 100 roles at a time, with not much infrastructure to help with that, but it was an exciting project, so it was attractive to candidates in that way. Kind of found myself with a bit of a career ceiling there, I suppose, if you like. So I then moved to a big real estate company called the JLL, which lots of people may have heard of, and that was from a kind of initial approach from a previous colleague, and that was looking after their EMEA kind of recruitment. Built a small team up there, did quite well, solved a few problems, then ended up being promoted a couple of times and eventually being the head of talent acquisition operations for EMEA, kind of feeding into a global team, and that is essentially how do we create the infrastructure for the delivery teams to do their best work, and how do we create kind of the best possible experiences for all involved. Again, love that, but unfortunately COVID happened, and real estate deals kind of just stopped really overnight, and no one knew when they were gonna pick back up again. So a lot of support function people were asked to leave, I guess, essentially, and there were people on furlough throughout the business. So that kind of ended my time there. So when the world got going again, I joined a company called RSM, who are another professional services firm, kind of accountancy and consulting. They're a top 8 kind of firm in the UK, and I set up kind of the TA operational side there, so doing the same things that I was doing at JLL, but for RSM, and that started to go quite well. Got a couple of promotions there as well. Ended up running the whole talent acquisition team, so being accountable for sort of 1,500 to 2,000 hires, depending on the year. And there was a big focus on early careers in kind of my time in that role there. So I spent a lot of time doing early careers. We hired a lot of students there, but also had a lot of potential students wanting to join as well. So the logistics of that were challenging. And then I kind of just felt like I was missing a couple of things in that role. So one of them was kind of probably freedom over my own time and destiny, if you like. And after you've been somewhere a few years, kind of the transformation element stops a bit, doesn't it? You run out of things to transform, and so the fractional kind of opportunity gives me a chance to kind of deliver kind of big impact across a lot of companies and take a bit more ownership of my times.
Amazing. And you said very very casually at the beginning there that you sold a business at 19. Is that right? What was that?
I
Tell us a little
started it
bit
when
about
I was
that.
19. It went for a sort of 2 or 3 years. It was nothing special. It was just a valeting business that started in the back of a golf club. So I was a keen golfer, and we saw an opportunity there. It's like, oh, these lovely cars coming in. They're all quite dirty. Let's set up a service to clean them. So we did, and that ended up growing to a couple of sites. And we also had a mobile offering that went around the local offices as well. It was very, very cold in the winter. And so yeah, ended up selling that, but a great learning experience.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. And I mean, at such a young age as well, to actually like sell a business, no matter what the business is. I mean, I think that kind of figures into your whole journey, what you've just explained there about you got to be quite ambitious, I guess, and the want to transform and develop to go off on the different tangents that you have and into the different companies that you have.
I think so, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
solving problems and seeing opportunities to do things in a better way, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, within the recruitment sort of sphere of things, with those different companies that you've been involved with, what sort of changes or trends have you seen within the industry as a whole?
Yeah, so I think the industry's grown up a lot over those 10 years, I suppose. I mean, initially in-house teams were not really a thing. That's only been in the last, yeah, sort of 12, 10 years that in-house teams have really been around, and that's primarily they were there to cut costs. I think initially agency recruitment can be expensive, but I think it's kind of transformed into companies can control their narrative and the way they do hiring essentially. But there's still kind of lots of companies that could be doing it better. So I suppose in that 10 years there's so many, but at the moment, let's say it's a bit of a tough time in the job market. There's a few economic kind of reasons for that, kind of at home and abroad. You've got tariffs, you've got new employee rights bills, increasing national insurance. So that obviously means that there's probably not so many jobs out there for people, especially entry level when you're looking at technology. So no one really knows how technology and AI, which we might get to, will impact kind of the jobs market because everyone's still learning and it's a bit of a buzzword, and it will, the use cases will get narrowed down. But
Yeah,
junior level jobs are taking a bit of a hammering for sure. So what does that mean for recruitment teams? It means that there's kind of massive volumes of applications coming through when you use kind of the traditional job posting route. So then they're
yeah.
really struggling to kind of keep on top of those volumes of people and sort of getting back to everyone. You see job adverts with 100 people clicked apply in a few days, and AI helps with that as well. Candidates can use AI to apply, but they don't really like having AI used to assess them.
Yeah,
They want the kind of candidate, the candidate kind of has the power when it comes to AI at the moment, and recruitment teams can use technology to help kind of rank and score and get to the relevant ones faster, if you like, but they're not using it to make decisions
Mm.
at the end of the day. So there's a lot of trends. I think we could go for
Yeah.
ages on trends in technology and things like that.
I'm gonna ask you more, of course, on AI and what you see the impact of that more broadly. But I'm curious about recruitment and seasonality. Is that a big sort of challenge for recruitment firms to overcome? Like how they're, I guess, depending on the niche that you're involved with, or maybe the times of year.
Seasonality, yeah. I mean, if you've been here long enough, you always know the busy times are kind of January,
Yeah,
and it's always going to be uh, probably busy when companies get their new budgets. So it depends when that is, and you always know that kind of graduate early careers roles are going to open in October and run to probably March time, and then it's likely going to be quieter in the summer when people are on holiday. Especially if you start talking about companies that recruit internationally.
yeah,
Um, Somewhere like France shuts down throughout the whole of August, so you can't really get um, much done in terms of recruitment on that time because there's no decision makers around really.
yeah,
So yeah, it is. There are peaks and troughs, but usually big companies will be hiring kind of consistently.
Is that what you'd say the impact differs according to the size of your operations, really?
It will definitely.
Way might it impact sort of negatively on a smaller recruitment firm?
And on a recruitment firm in particular, so
Mm,
my role is usually for companies that not recruiting recruiters as such,
uh,
but for recruitment firms, obviously, depending on their niche, so recruitment firms are very, very niche as such. So,
yeah.
you might have someone specializing in a particular area like HR, quite generalist, so it could be
Mhm.
busy all the time. Whereas if you've got more and kind of niche skill set, I'm sure there's peaks and troughs in those.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The COVID, I want to kind of explore a little bit with you, Joe. I mean, was there really a big change in the way recruitment sort of developed or adapted after the pandemic?
I mean, yeah, recruitment stopped really during COVID. So then what you found when the world opened up again, and this was what we found at RSM for sure, is that they were so cautious. They were ramping up and kind of hiring very slowly.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it just went crazy and companies were going, just find me a person. Like I'll take not almost anyone, but I'll be more facilitating on the
Yeah.
requirements. We just need people. So it's a very candidate driven market at that time. Whereas here now what you're seeing is that it's a real kind of business or company driven market, and they're being much more, I guess, selective about the types of roles that they hire, the types of people that they bring in. So you see lots of roles kicking around probably for quite a long time where companies are being quite selective. But the way that you attract top talent now has changed a lot, especially over the last 3 to 5 years. It's a lot more about storytelling. It should be a lot about always on recruitment marketing, employer branding activity, if you like, working out the personas of the types of people that you want to attract, the messaging that
Yeah.
that will resonate with them, and where are they hanging out. So good recruitment teams now are really thinking like almost like marketeers, and what is going to resonate with these people, and how do I attract them? So you've already got to think in that way. They kind of, especially over the last few years, the kind of job posting model still exists, but it's nowhere near as effective as it was for some of the reasons that we've talked about. You get swamped by kind of irrelevant candidates, but also the best candidates are still not really actively looking. So you need to find
Yeah.
creative ways of engaging them, and that's old school sourcing, but that's also thinking a bit more like a marketeer.
Is that sort of changing expectation, from the candidate's point of view on finding a job that they're attracted to or pulled into? Is that a reflection on the changing demographics, more sort of Gen Zers coming into the market and the way that they look at work and think about work being that bit different?
Yeah, no, for sure. They're the purpose-driven generation, aren't they? So you need to be able to demonstrate as a company, not just people expect now to be paid fairly. They expect to get some flexibility to be able to work from home occasionally, and they expect to get benefits and have their pay reviewed. Kind of, yeah. Gen Z is different. They want people, they want companies to be doing good in the world, and how can the work that they are doing, um, be a bit greater than them, if you like. And so it's kind of showcasing that in an authentic kind of storytelling way. If people want to attract Gen Z, then that's what you need to do. You're definitely not gonna find it using the techniques from 1995.
Yeah. And it's, I guess, for any HR department, any recruitment firm, it's something that they can't ignore. It's only accelerating more and more the shifting demographics. So it's not slowing down. There's more Gen Zers coming into the market
For
that
sure.
you have to change, right, with those times. And I
Yeah.
guess that kind of brings us nicely, Joe, to fractional. As an open-ended question, what is a fractional recruitment leader? How is what you're doing now so different to when you were working within, a dedicated recruitment firm?
It's not it's not primarily that different as such, as in the day-to-day work should be the same. So the benefit of a fractional leader is you get an experienced person that's done it before, you don't have to worry so much about their employment on costs, their benefits, their career development. You don't have to take them through that annual performance cycle as such. So you kind of get someone who you can engage with for the hours that you need. So you don't need to commit to paying someone full time. You can say, okay,
Right.
I can do 15 hours, or this job is 15 hours a week, or whatever it might be, and you get highly experienced, skilled expertise that can hit the ground running, that's happy kind of to operate sort of in that grey area almost, if you like. So you're buying a part of a really experienced person's time who can
Yeah.
add value really quickly. Whereas sometimes if you want to hire a permanent head, obviously that comes with a lot of costs. It comes with a certain amount of risk. I see it as you get experienced execution kind of straight away for a fraction of the cost and the risk of a permanent person.
Hence fractional.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a brand new concept, but it is
Yeah.
something that is coming up. Seeing it more and more often. Operational type roles as well, and that fits with kind of the agile workforces that companies now need to create. In a world of rising costs and uncertainty.
I was going to say, would that be the reason you would say that fractional leaders are becoming more relevant in this day and age? Is it that sort of economic uncertainty and the tightening of belts?
I think that's definitely a part of it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, people are the biggest costs in pretty much almost any business, but they're also very time consuming. So if you can do anything to kind of mitigate some of that risk, then I think that's a good thing, especially if you're a smaller company just starting up. But I think it also suits a bit of what some of the workforce is looking for now in terms of that flexibility. They're able to be agile and have a bit more control over their own destiny, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Who would be, for your services, who would be an ideal partner, client to work with?
Yeah, so anyone that kind of wants to improve the way that they do recruitment. So anyone who's got frustrations in kind of their recruitment outcomes, kind of clunky technology that isn't working for them. That can be, I've predominantly done it in larger companies historically, obviously, as we talked about. I think anyone with kind of growth ambitions that wants to create talent density, stand out in an area where there's a lot of competition for the skills that they need. Anyone that wants to attract top talent to their business needs to be able to do it in a systemic way if you're going to do it in a cost-effective manner, I suppose.
Yeah. Very well said. What would you say, Joe, for someone in the fractional world, a fractional leader such as yourself? On the flip side of that, what's the challenge for a fractional leader to I suppose grow and sustain their business? Is it just that visibility, that awareness, that you exist, you're here,
Finding new
here are my
clients,
services.
for sure. Obviously going back to having to do some sales and actively work on your personal brand and all of those things is something that you definitely need to do as someone who's in the fractional space, because you need that social proof that you can add value in this world. And probably on the flip side, the challenges of you have multiple clients, so it's making sure that you find the balance of, okay, I need to take on the right amount of clients that I can still deliver this work and not encroach, being paid for X number of hours, that it doesn't kind of edge over and that type of stuff. So and just being really organized, I think.
Brilliant. And I've got to ask you now, Joe. AI, you touched upon it before, and I don't want to ask so much, specifically within the fractional world, because as you said, you are a recruiter, right? It's just the way that you operate is a different model, right? So within the recruitment world, as you've seen it, over the years, how is AI having an impact with recruitment firms in general, but also the clients that you've been working with? What sort of impact are you seeing?
Yeah, there's a lot. So we touched upon it a lot about candidates using AI in a lot of cases. So candidates are using it to apply for jobs. Candidates, not just one job, they're using it to apply for hundreds of jobs all at once. So that's creating a real headache for in-house teams, recruitment agencies, but they don't like to be assessed using AI, as I said. So you're still having to kind of have that human element to kind of get through these numbers of people
Yeah.
that are largely irrelevant because they've used AI to apply. In the recruitment agency world, there's some AI recruitment agents popping up. There's one called Jack and Jill, which is probably the one I've seen around the most. But I know that there's a couple of others out there. So AI seems to be really impacting like the sourcing stage of recruitment. There's quite
Right.
a lot more to it. There's a lot more touch points than that, but that's where it's really focused. The finding, the messaging, the ranking of candidates applying for jobs. Some candidates are using it to do. I've seen these scary like AI avatars where people are using it to do their Teams interviews and stuff like that. So you end up managers and interview someone that isn't the real person. It's just an AI
Yeah.
avatar and that person
Yeah.
standing in the background. So that's going to bring interviews back into the office, like face to face and things like that, so you can validate kind of who you're talking to and that they're giving real answers. You do see kind of examples of people being brought in because they did virtual interviews and they performed really well, but actually they couldn't do the job. But it turns out they've just used AI. So being able to validate who you're actually talking to is
So,
going to
so
be
you saying, just for me to clarify, the candidates using AI avatars or the interviewers using AI
no, the
avatars?
candidates are using AI
Oh,
avatars
wow.
and then it can
Wow.
transcript almost the interview there and then, and it will come up with an answer. And you
Wow.
see examples in companies of where ultimately someone different has walked through the door to who did that interview. So
How do you deal with
background
that kind of
checking.
situation?
Well, usually obviously they're in it's difficult, right? So you do have to have a bit of a difficult conversation with this person, but it's then about making sure they've got clear objectives to deliver in their first few months so that you can manage that through performance whilst they're in their probationary period. And obviously doing background checks before they join. So if you don't, get references, use a background screening service, that kind of stuff, I think is going to be more prominent, more important, just to make sure that you are um, bringing in the person who they said they are. But if you can kind of do the interview in person, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's so much kind of legislation is going to play a big part, especially in EU and the UK. Legislation will be tight on firms using AI to make what should be human decisions, because AI can be inherently biased. So it depends who's
Yeah.
training it, who's making those, how it's making those decisions. So you know big companies in particular will always be nervous about using AI kind of in their recruitment process. As I said, it's not making final decisions, it's scoring and ranking. Even that kind of has an
Yeah.
element of risk for some companies. But candidates who go, "Oh, I was rejected within 5 seconds of applying," that's not AI. That is kind of old school. If this, then that kind of workflows. It means you've given an incorrect answer to probably what is a multiple choice question. I think in the future I'll probably see it two main things happening. Sounds a bit ironic, but AI can help kind of stressed recruiters bring a bit of the human touch back. Recruitment teams are being asked to do more with less at the moment, so AI can probably help in terms of um, giving candidates a little bit more of a personalized experience. You're seeing things like AI chatbots pop up on career sites, kind of AI chatbots doing kind of first round of just screening conversations, asking basic questions, that kind of stuff. So I think that helps, and that will help you get to a human quicker.
Mm.
So that definitely has a place. I do also think that it will create a bit of a mass exodus of some people off platforms like LinkedIn and other social media, because people with rare skill sets will just be fed up of getting messages from large language models. So they're going to go and hide, and they're only going to go and build relationships with kind of genuine firms or recruiters that they think will be able to help them in the future. And so you won't be able to, it's very easy to find someone in recruitment now. It has been for a long time, since LinkedIn existed. Getting them to answer you and apply is kind of always where the skill is, if you like. So I think, yeah, skills on social media platforms will probably disappear, but I do think that things like vibe coding will help. kind of create kind of more bespoke tools for teams. So as an example, I had an interview kind of questionnaire document that I was able to recreate kind of in an hour using vibe coding that was much more dynamic. You could take off the questions you wanted, you could create a scoring framework, and you could, kind of rank the candidates based upon your scoring. And I did this in about an hour, and it didn't cost me anything using, I think it was Base 44 or, some other platform like Recruitment is I think the other one. So I think that will help teams, create tools and solutions that are more fit to their organization, because at the moment you end up buying a tool that has set workflows and you can't customize it necessarily in the way that your firm or company works. So being able to kind of cheaply and quickly do that, and you can create kind of better experiences for all involved.
Some very fascinating insights there, Joe. I want to kind of rewind, because what you said, decision making, it stood out. You reminded me when I used to live in Shanghai, and we went to a lot of AI robotic type seminars, and there was one of the questions was posed about self-driving cars. It's a bit, away from recruitment, but the I suppose the problem is the same. So yes, we're going to have self-driving cars. At some point, they're going to become mainstream, and they're already starting to appear now. But self-driving cars will need to be programmed. For example, child runs across the road directly in front of the car going at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The car then has to decide, depending on how it's being programmed, whether to protect the passengers in the car by avoiding the child and rolling off into a hedgerow and potentially killing the passengers, or killing the child, just slamming on the brakes and the child will run over, right? It will have to make those decisions, but it will have to be programmed to make those decisions. What do you do in particular situation, which is then going to cause lots of problems with the law in law courts. How do you
Who do you blame?
what do you do with that, right? And I guess it's exactly the same with recruitment. Like, it is quite ironic, quite funny that candidates are prepared to use AI for their applications, use AI bots for the interviews. There's no repercussions necessarily, but then on the flip side, recruitment firms are there's no rules against it, but are hesitant to do the same. And I guess part of it comes from a moral high ground, right? Even there isn't the legislation in place, but also a recruitment firm's reputation is on the line. Candidates know that that's happening, then they're not going to go to that particular recruitment firm, and that can then help make them suffer in terms of the positions that they're filling and the candidates that are not attracted to them. I guess one point is the legislation isn't there yet.
There is some kind of there is some base legislation and around kind of quite closely tied to GDPR and things like that. So there is some kind of framework legislation. I know there's a lot of discussion about it as well, and it usually basically comes down to that automated decision making. So if any company is using tools that do have automated decision making in them, there is an element of risk there. If someone found out and said I was unfairly discriminated against because of this tool, then they could be taken to potentially a tribunal. But there's not much kind of case law, if you like, to go on, but at some point it will happen.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because it's been well documented that the likes of ChatGPT and Copilots has inherent bias because of the information that it's fed. It has racial bias, it has socioeconomic bias, gender bias. So if you're using that to make decisions, there's bias. But then is it better than the human bias?
I suppose it can be. If you'd have had some of the feedback that you get from some people who have done interviews sometimes, then there probably is probably could be better. But I think a long time ago that there's video interviewing technologies out there that started to introduce the technology to sort of work out where people were maybe lying or something like that, or reading off script or whatever, and it's kind of out there, but it's not really caught on.
Yeah.
it's been around. Everyone's been trying to fix recruitment with technology for a long time, not quite cracked it yet.
Yeah. From your experience, I'm curious, Joe. If there was a workflow, an automation, an AI technology that could solve a particular problem in just day-to-day recruitment, that it hasn't been done yet, what would that be? Do you think that would have like the biggest impact on the way that recruitment firms operate?
That's a good question.
And I leave you on the spot, put you on the spot there.
I think one of the so the problem when you try to automate, or my experience of building automation, building systems, building processes that are rolled out at scale, is that humans think in different ways. So it's the behavior of the humans that break the system, not necessarily the process is wrong. So it's probably being able to, and this is a bit of a cop out, but it's probably AI has the ability to bring a bit of nuance to a process that probably works for 70 or 80% of the people, but it doesn't work for the 30%, and that causes quite a lot of noise and delays and things like that. So let's say interview scheduling. So in companies that I've worked in, that takes up an extortionate amount of time. So you've got interviews, you have teams or roles of people whose job it is primarily to try and book in interviews. And there are lots of solutions out there that can, for sure, but they're not perfect because people break them, because they don't all work in the same way. People manage their diaries differently. Time zones are different. So you can say, well, I'll just use this scheduling tool to put this meeting in someone's diary. But if someone blocks out, their whole day to do work, but they could interview in that time, but how does the technology know? It still has to go and talk to that person to, in theory, to find out. So I think it's about being able to bring a bit of nuance and refinement to existing technologies. And I think there's nothing really more human than finding a new job as well. So you need to be able to keep that human element to it.
It goes back to human conversation as paramount, the human interaction, but just try to, where we can, automate the repetitive stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's the repetitive tasks that will always help. I mean, you're not going to go and work, I think it's unlikely, unless you really need that job, that you're going to go and work for a company where you've never actually spoken to someone who works there, right? So there are always going to be a need for the human element, but it's the repetitive task. So interview bookings, one, it helps with sourcing, it helps with some assessment. I think it's the nuance that will really help.
Yeah, amazing. Joe, going forward, over the next sort of 6 months, 1 year, what do you have in the pipeline? What's the kind of the goals for yourself?
Yeah, so I'm obviously quite new to this. So I've only been going fractionally for a few weeks. So I'm lucky that I've been able to pick up a client or two, but I've still got a few hours a week to fill. So if anyone's interested, that's the initial focus right now, is just to get the diary a bit fuller. But I'm hoping to kind of be able to help people on a slightly bigger scale kind of moving forward. So kind of using my own resources that people can have access to and give them away as cheaply or for free in some cases, just to kind of help raise the standard kind of recruitment overall. Because I think we get a bit of a bad rep, but it is really hard. There are a few kind of own goals that we score that we can kind of help. So I think for me, just work on some interesting projects with some great companies, and then to be able to kind of roll some of the systems out that I've created at more of a scale, I suppose, and can make them more accessible to other people.
Well, Joe, for those of our listeners that want to reach out to you directly, what's the best contact details to get you on?
I think I'm always active on LinkedIn, as all talent acquisition and recruiters are. So yeah, obviously you can look me up on LinkedIn, or my email is joe@progressivehiringpartners.com.
Brilliant. Well, I will be sure to put those contact details below, and I would encourage anyone really that has the need, that fits the requirements, to reach out to Joe as an extremely experienced recruiter and now fractional recruitment leader. But Joe, summary, I guess, of this conversation, a few standout areas for me. Number one is using a fractional recruitment leader such as yourself can be an absolute game changer, a real advantage for the companies that really can utilize it to their benefit in terms of saving time, saving resources, and being much more efficient by using an experienced recruitment leader to meet their own recruitment needs. Number one is the real value of a fractional recruitment leader. Number two is for every organization, every recruitment team need to be aware of how AI, how new technology is being potentially misused by candidates, and to make sure that you have the right responses and I suppose ways of closing those, making sure those issues don't happen in the first place before that becomes the awareness of it. That would be a real standout. And really, number three is the human touch, which everyone has echoed, that those conversations are the most important things that we can be having in recruitment. But brilliant insights today, Joe. Really, really fantastic having you on. And everyone listening, thank you also for listening. Please like and share this video so we can get this message out to as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.